How's it going, vaqueros, and welcome back to the channel for another Warzone 2 shotgun video. It's been a while since I've talked about Warzone 2, but it's finally time to get into it and what changed since Season 1 Reloaded, because quite a few things have changed and the meta is kind of shaken up now for close quarters, at least for shotguns specifically. So what I want to do is go over those changes, the big important ones from that update, and then talk about the damage mechanics, and then I'm going to go over the sort of quote-unquote meta for the shotguns now, and talk about what classes I think you should be using and all that good stuff. So there's going to be a lot to cover here. If you want to jump to one particular section or skip one of them, then I will leave timestamps below if you don't want to hear me babble about nerdy things. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop right into the video. Alright, so the first big change we got to talk about is the Bryson 800 and the Bryson 890 will no longer one-shot kill a fully armored player. That's right, we all saw it coming and it was bound to happen, and yes, it has been in fact nerfed. You cannot get any one-shot kills with the pump-action shotguns. It was incredibly strong, incredibly useful, but also incredibly niche because you really had to sacrifice a primary spot for that shotgun that was pretty limited in range already. But yeah, now it's basically back to how it was in Warzone 1, where most of the pump actions were dealing a lot of damage up close, but you still basically had to do 2 shots all the time. So they're still strong, but they're not quite as strong. I think a lot of people are happy about that. I'm kind of sad. It was fun to have a one-shot shotgun for once, but it is what it is. We knew it was coming, so I'm kind of indifferent to the change. It's sad, but anyway, let's move on to the next big change, which is that because of the way it was affected and the damage mechanics and all that stuff they changed, which I'll get into soon, the Expedite 12 with the base ammo no longer 2-shot kills. So if you're using the base ammo, as in no other ammunition attachment on the Expedite, you're going to have to kill in at least 3 shots, which means it's probably going to be 3 to 4, maybe 4 or more on most occasions, which pretty much puts your time to kill basically on par or worse than the 2-shot pump actions. So because of that, the Expedite 12 with the base ammo is probably one of the worst things you could use possibly now in Warzone, considering how fast everything else kills, and the Expedite is a sort of semi-auto shotgun when it comes to the damage, but its fire rate is still kind of slow. I don't recommend the Expedite 12 as much anymore over a pump action without Dragon's Breath. And we're going to get into Dragon's Breath later in the video, so stick around for that. But basically, no one-shot Brysons, no 2-shot Expedite without Dragon's Breath. So on to the next part of the video, which is basically the damage mechanics and how they've changed. Now for this part of the video, I'll try my best not to bore you because it's kind of numbery and it gets kind of boring. So if you don't want to hear the damage mechanic stuff or go over any of that sort of nerdy stuff about shotguns, then you can feel free to skip to any part of the video. But if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes and try to make sense of it with me, then stick around. So for reference, this is all hand-tested stuff that's been cross-referenced with sim.gg. It's very difficult to test shotguns in game because of how weird they can be, so just bear with me, but let's get into it. So before Season 1 Reloaded, there was a mechanic that basically limited how much damage you could do per pellet with armor on. So if you shot someone, they had armor on, you had a certain cap to the damage you could do per pellet, and then if they had no armor on at all, then you could do even more damage. So for example, the Bryson 800, it was capped at 50 damage per pellet with armor on, but if there was no armor, it was 100 damage per pellet. So it was kind of a weird system, but it ended up working out in our favor to get those one-shot kills, but that's been changed since Season 1 Reloaded. What's going on now is you still basically have that sort of 4 pellet cap to where you have the damage done, but there's also another hard cap on top of that that basically limits how much damage you can possibly do with that shotgun up close. So in other words, the Bryson 800 has basically a cap of 200 damage up close. That means even if you hit 4 pellets, 2 pellets, 3 pellets, it's going to be only dealing 200 damage, but you're still dealing 100 damage per pellet. So armor no longer has an effect on how much damage you can do per pellet, but basically, like I said, there's a hard cap on how much damage you can possibly do. The game just basically checks and say, hey, is the damage over 200 for this shotgun? Yes? Okay, then just keep it at 200. The Expedite is basically going through the same thing because I checked, and it basically deals 100 damage per pellet, just like the Bryson, just like on sim.gg, it is 100 damage per pellet with the Expedite, but up close and personal, when you hit center mass, get all your pellets on target, you only deal 120 damage. So you might be thinking, where does that 20 come from? Well, it's basically checking saying, okay, hey look, the damage is over our cap, which is for this one 120, so just keep it at 120. So even if you hit 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pellets, it's only going to deal 120 damage up close, which unfortunately does not equal 250 when you shoot twice. That's why it takes a third shot, which is unfortunate. and that's something that happens in the other range as well. So basically the first 2 ranges of the Expedite 12, you'll basically be dealing 120 damage per shot, even though in the second range you'll be doing 34 damage per pellet, and up close you'll be dealing 100 damage per pellet. So to sum that all up, all that crazy number stuff, you basically have hard caps on how much damage you can do with these shotguns now. At least that's what seems to be the case. For the Bryson, it's 200 damage up close. For the Expedite, it is 120. So that's a big oof for the Expedite. But things get a little bit different when we talk about Dragon's Breath, which we'll go into in just a second. So now that we got all the sort of nerdy stuff out of the way with damage, let's talk about what the quote-unquote meta is and sort of what the best way to go about using these shotguns is now and what the best shotgun overall is, because it's changed, definitely in my opinion. So first of all, the big thing here is Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath is 100% the way to go, period, when you run a shotgun in Warzone, because it seems to basically increase the damage you can do, but it also increases your 2-shot ranges for these shotguns. I think it lowers your overall effective range, but up close, you're basically getting more range, which you wouldn't really expect, but I can confirm the 2-shot ranges for these shotguns is actually better than with the base ammunition type. So first of all, let's go over the Bryson 800 because that's the main important one. The Bryson 890 is basically the same as the 800, but it has less range, just better mobility. So just keep that in mind. I'm just going to go over the Bryson 800 first. So for the Bryson 800, basically your base 2-shot without Dragon's Breath is sitting at around that 5.8 meter mark. But when you equip Dragon's Breath, you actually increase it to about 6.5 meters. And now that 200 damage I was talking about earlier, well, now you can deal around 210 to 220 points of damage with Dragon's Breath on without Bomb Squad. I didn't test it with Bomb Squad, so just keep in mind you might do a little bit less against someone with Bomb Squad, but essentially you're going to be dealing around 210 to 220 points of damage against someone with Dragon's Breath on. It was always kind of fluctuating in between 210 and 220, so that's why it's not one specific number. Again, shotguns are kind of weird, so just bear with me. So that 2-shot of 6.5 meters is basically with no attachments, but when you run it with the big rifled barrel and the suppressor, the SAMX50, to get the most possible range from your gun, your 2-shot range goes to about 9.1 meters, which is basically equivalent to the combat shotgun at one point in Warzone 1's life cycle, which is really good. That 9.1 meters is not as good as the Model 680's 2-shot, but this, since there's only 250 health, is going to be much more consistent and actually really strong. I actually really enjoy this build quite a bit, more than I do in multiplayer. It works so good in Warzone 2, so I really recommend this build over all the others in my opinion, even though it's a little bit slower compared to some of the other ones, but the range is just, man, it's great. Now for the Expedite. So the Expedite basically has what the Bryson 800 does, where it gets a little bit more damage with Dragon's Breath on, and it actually has a 2-shot potential now, because with 1 shot, you deal roughly 130 to 140 points of damage with Dragon's Breath on. So that means you can actually 2-shot players now, which is really great. So that 2-shot goes out to about 5 meters with Dragon's Breath with the base gun. But I noticed that past that, you can't actually 3-shot with the gun. It jumps right to a 4-shot unless you hit a headshot. Because of the way Dragon's Breath works and all that, it's just not quite getting enough damage out there to kill someone unless you're hitting headshots to get a 3-shot kill. So for most occasions, basically it means up to 5 meters, it's a 2-shot kill. But past that, it's most likely going to take 4 at least. So it's kind of weird. I don't really know if I like the Expedite as much as I used to, because having to have Dragon's Breath is great, and I'm glad it can still 2-shot, but having it be so awkward after that 5-meter range is just really a downer for me personally, so I don't really enjoy it that much. Now, I do want to talk about the Lockwood 300 really quick because a lot of people have been asking about it, and I'll have a specific video for that later on too as well, but for now, we're just going to go briefly over it. So with Dragon's Breath, the 725 does exactly the same thing, where it has more damage and more range, so you basically deal about 210 to 220 points of damage. When you aim down sights, I was getting a 2-shot range of about 6.9 meters, so that's the best base 2-shot range out of all these shotguns in Warzone 2, so that's really nice to see that it's getting some love, but I still don't think it's going to be that great for most players because it's only 2-shot and it has such a slow reload, and in quads and trios, it can really get you killed. But like I said, there'll be a separate video for the 725, or I'm sorry, the Lockwood 300, so stay tuned for that. But yes, it does seem like it got a little bit better after this update, so that is nice. Now what you guys have been waiting for, my favorite shotgun in Warzone 2, and the shotgun I think you guys should be running and it's probably no surprise as you've seen tons of gameplay from it on screen, is the Bryson 800. Why? Because it's got great range out of all the shotguns. It's got a really great 2-shot range, great damage up close, super strong. Dragon's Breath is awesome on this thing, and of course, when you kit it out for range, you have a 9.1 meter 2-shot kill with Dragon's Breath, and that's really no joke. This thing is just insanely good in Warzone 2, and I highly encourage you guys to try it out. Now, if this build is a little slow for you, you can take off that suppressor, use a choke instead, but that rifle barrel is actually really good in Warzone, and I encourage you guys to try it out. And you can use a laser if you want, but I've basically been using that demo guard to get a faster fire rate more so than just a laser. This build has been so good. I really enjoy using this, and this is without a doubt, in my mind, the best shotgun currently in Warzone 2, at least for sort of the base ammo types. We're not talking slugs here or anything. We'll get into that later, but for a spread shotgun, the Bryson 800 is the best. The Bryson 890 is behind that slightly because it has less range but better mobility. The Expedite is after that, of course, and then, of course, we have the Lockwood 300, which is very niche but a lot of fun, in the last place of best shotgun. So that is my opinion on the Warzone shotgun meta. It is, in my opinion, without a doubt, the Bryson 800 that is the go-to for many people. Yes, it's a pump action. That's weird that the pump action is the meta, in my opinion, but it's just compared to the other ones, and we don't really have a spammy shotgun in this one. This is the way to go. So much damage up close, really great 2-shot range. Give it a try, guys. I'm dying to know what you guys think of this shotgun and this build. So that's going to be it for this video. I know it was kind of longer, and hopefully I didn't ramble too much. It was just... man, there was just a lot to go over. I feel like I'm losing my voice here. But basically, that's going to be it for this video. So I want to know down below in the comments, what do you think about Warzone 2 shotgun meta? Do you agree with me that the Bryson 800 is just really, really great and probably the best shotgun overall? Or do you think another shotgun, maybe the Expedite, is still actually the better of the 4? And with all that being said, guys, I will see you in the next shotgun video.